Now, Firewall Dragon is bigger than ever, starring in Cyberstorm Access.
Hey gang, happy holidays from Mad Matt. I hope everyone has had a decent year. I also hope everyone has been having fun with all of our favorite children's card game and haven't gotten sacked too hard in your recent duels. Although it is Master Duel, so who am I kidding? Well, if you need a break from ladder, I've got some more deck profile ASMR for you. I'm back again on ignister, but as you can see by the title of the deck, this time it's with a slight twist. If you watched the last few weeks of the Master Circuit series, I'm sure you saw I Wish I Was Dead tearing up with ignister, and that's what we're on today. I took his week 3 list, which I'm going to show here, and then I made some changes later on after I saw his week 4 build. I made a couple of other changes after that and eventually settled on this build. My deck is slightly different as his builds were preparing for a best of 3 with siding tournament metagame, so I made some slight changes that I thought would be good for ladder. Were my changes any good? Well, we'll kind of go over that. I also had one further change after the ban list drop, and despite the children's yearning for the mines, Konami decided to take away one of our sign-up minings, which, sucks a little bit, but ultimately is fine, which we'll get into that as well. So what is ignister? Well, it's an anime archetype of just these horrible, awful little gremlins here. I'm sure the anime goes over all their lore, and luckily I know none of it, and none of you in the comments better change that. The less I know about these horrible little men, the better my life is. What I do care about is how they function in-game. First off, they are a Cyberse archetype, which I know is just everyone's favorite, and just no one is sick of getting sacked by Mathmech on ladder. I mean, yeah, let's go over that a bit. John Konami decided that Cyberse as typing should just be full of some of the most busted ass shit you've ever seen in your life. Well, yes, Konami, I do agree. If I am able to summon a Resolve Circular, I should be able to OTK without even using my normal summon. That's totally fine. But don't worry, friends, Diameter is serving a limited sentence in card game prison. And yes, Diameter may have taken the bad rap for Circular, and yes, Diameter may still get conjugal visits with Ablation, but I don't see Mathmech on the tier list anymore. So, problem solved. But you're right, friends, as always, I'm getting off track. Let's go over the deck and try to keep this somewhat short, as there is plenty to cover with this deck. ignister is a somewhat slept-on combo archetype of Cyberse monsters. It's definitely not the most popular deck out there, despite having a lot of key strengths, which we'll get into. Like most Cyberse archetypes, they excel at summoning and link climbing multiple times over the turn. This allows them access to multiple high-level link monsters, where some of them work as pieces of interactions, and others are just perfect for closing out games. Whereas Mathmech is a bit more mid-rangey, and their opening combo leaves a bit more in the extra deck's gas tank for cracking back, this deck is basically 100% combo. We aim to use everything but the kitchen sink in our extra deck with our opening lines in order to put up multiple pieces of interaction and difficult to deal with monsters. And by the kitchen sink, I mean, of course, access code talker, because we need some way to close out games. The opponent either needs to make sure you don't combo, or they need to find some dedicated board breakers, otherwise the game is effectively over if we are able to combo off. If we face no interruption, this deck has no issue with accomplishing that goal, as this deck can full combo and do the entire line off any of its one-card starters. And which card are one-card starters for this deck? Oh, not too many, just these 11. But the fact that we have so many starters means you basically will always open playable with this deck. And does this deck brick? Yeah, of course, but just be better than your opponent. I don't know what else to tell you. So yeah, the deck has an awesome combo line if it doesn't face interruption. What if we do face interruption? I mean, just don't save those replays and don't show them to your friends. Just show them the good ones, of course. But actually, this deck does a decent job at playing through interruption, as number 1, the deck has multiple extenders. Number 2, opponents are not familiar with this deck, as they might be with something like Mathmech, and they might not interrupt you optimally. But also there's number 3, where it may not be obvious to your opponent when to use interruption against the deck, even if they are familiar with it, because depending on the contents of your hand, you may be able to play through certain interruptions at certain points, where a different hand wouldn't allow it, and the opponent won't necessarily be savvy as to whether that's the case or not. You'll see the deck playing through like even to Biru in some of the duels, and we'll get into that as we go over the cards more. So let's quickly go through the card by card. For ignister, the starters, 3 Achichi, he's the Stratus for the deck on summon at any level 4 or lower ignister. We basically always want to see him with our opening hand, and he's one of our go-to normal summons. The other starter, 3 Pikari, on summon he can add any AI spell trap that just ends up working out for Solid's extension and comboing, and he's also one of the ideal normal summons for the deck. Like I said earlier, both are one card full combo, and as they are Cyberse monsters, both are searchable by sign-up mining. We're always happy to see both Achichi and Pikari in our opening hand. For ignister for the one-ofs, some are part of the combo, some are extenders, some are both. When Doyon on summon, he can add any ignister monster in our grave back to our hand, and when he goes to grave, he can recover an AI spell trap. Part of the combo line, and just very good resource recovery. We're on the one Bururu, who on summon acts as a foolish burial for ignister monsters, and he's also a tuner with just a very solid revive effect when he syncs synchro summons. We're on the one Gachiri. He is typically who will be sending to the grave with Bururu, as we have a way to add Gachiri back to hand from grave. And in hand Gachiri works as just a great extender, and then also he has the ability where you can turn one of our link monsters into a towers until the end of our opponent's turn. So fantastic for our board setups. Let's run one Hayari, who can special summon himself from hand if you control an add ignister monster. Just great extender. Just if you need that extra bit of link material for either setting up your board or closing out the game. And he's also required for one of our combo lines. For spells, each of them are searchable, so we're running them as one-ofs. A lot of people will run some of them with extra copies, just that's going to be your preference, so feel free to play around with it. I like each of them at one. We're on one AI Meet You, which sort of works like a Rhoda for the archetype, but in like the jankiest way possible. However, it is important for our combo line, so definitely required to be run. We're on one FA Eating Spirit as our searchable in-archetype monster reborn. Just decent recovery and extension, especially if we need to continue to play the game if our opponent is somehow able to deal with our board. And then the one's Field Spell, AI Land, where if you control no monsters in your main monster zones, you can special summon an add ignister monster from your hand, once for each attribute, which basically allows us to extend almost indefinitely, because as you can see, they're all effectively different attributes. So this field spell is just incredibly broken. Love it. Allows us to just make some really crazy plays, which you'll see in the combo portion. For the extra deck, we're on the 2 Dark Infant add ignister, who on summon, he gets to search out AI land. He also has an effect that pairs well with Dark Templar, which you'll see in the combo portion. You'll see it. It's kind of goofy, but we need 2 copies for our combo, so we're on the 2 copies. We're on the 1 Dark Templar, where Cyber's monster is special summoned to a zone he points to. He can special summon level 4 lower add ignister monsters from the grave to zones he points to. So in our combo, we'll special summon Dark Infant, and then we'll use Dark Infant to leave that zone, effectively opening up 3 zones, allowing us to special summon 3 monsters from the grave, just giving us a million link material on the board. And then last, we're on the 1 Winged Pegasus, who will be summoning during our combo line as interruption for us while he's in the grave. And then a couple of our cards also gain further beneficial effects when you have a synchro in the grave, so it's useful to get him in the grave when we can. And then another cool part about Winged Pegasus, he's also just Heavy Storm on a body, so he can come in handy if we're going second, and it does actually come up, so very handy to the deck. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Arrival Cyber's add ignister, and will notice that he does not make the extra deck for us in this instance. Believe me, I love the guy, and the Arrival is undoubtedly cool. It's just not the best thing this deck can be doing, unfortunately. Although this deck has no issue getting to a link 6, the issue comes with the fact that the Arrival not only needs 6 link material, you need multiple bodies to make him even mildly threatening. Like, yeah, cool, we can make the Arrival with only 3 bodies, but you'll only have 3,000 attack. And if we make the Arrivals with 6 bodies, then that's pretty much our whole turn, and Gamma Seal is probably going to end up being our end board. We'll go over in a moment what we aim to end on with this deck, and unfortunately the Arrival just doesn't end up working out for us. For other engines, I know I bitched a bit about Mathmech before, but we're on a small Mathmech package. But it's fine, guys, I promise. I mean, in Mathmech, they're using Circular as a busted starter, searcher, and extender, whereas we're using him as a broken starter, searcher, and extender. You'll see how Circular works for the deck. He allows us to extend even further, bait out and play through interruption, and put multiple pieces of extra link material on the board for stronger end boards, or just pushing for the game. It's fine, guys. Diameter was definitely the card that needed to get hit. The Mathmech stuff is just easily searchable thanks to the one of Alimbertion and our sign-up minings, and they just pair well with the add ignister archetype. Small aside, it's also important that we get an XYZ engrave, so Alimbertion works out perfect for us as well. Because we're on Circular, we're on the 1 of Sigma to enable Circular shenanigans, and then also 1 addition, 1 subtraction, 1 equation, just as generic searchable Cyberse extenders. For main deck non-engine, if we have so many ways to full combo with 1 card, the deck actually has a lot of space for non-engine, and it can be somewhat customizable. But of course we're on what else? 3 Max D, 3 Ash, 2 Called By, 1 Crossout. We want to play the game, we want to win games, so, you know, there's your Master Duel tax. We're also on 1 Imperm and 2 Valor. The Valor is over Imperm. I drew inspiration from I Wish I Was Dead, where I believe he updated his week 4 list Valor, as number 1 Valor is someone you can hit and be live off a Heat Soul draw on your opponent's turn, whereas Imperm would not be. But also number 2, we have a way to bounce a used Valor back to our hand thanks to Firewall Dragon bouncing from grave. And as Valor is not once per turn, it allows for a second effect negate. So I mean, that could conceivably come up. For other non-engine, I chose to run Triple Tactics Thrust as a 3 of. It did fine. Like, don't get me wrong, the card can be crazy, but on average it was maybe just okay for me. It has some cool applications, like searching for a blowout spell, like Talents, Duster, or Geki. Although Urgeki ended up being pretty meh. But it can also search out Mining, which can be solid for the deck when you need to find an extender or starter. The reason I'm saying that it was only okay is that Thrust isn't the best going first, as your opponent doesn't have any monsters on board, so all you can do is set the card you search. And then really the only thing that's in our main deck that you can search is Imperm, so like sitting Imperm and praying, which isn't always the best place to be, not the worst place to be. But if you wanted to include Thrust, I would maybe also say run some blowout trap like Dharma Cannon, but then that's just, just a lovely garnet for the deck. So maybe you could just cut Thrust altogether for talents and or more hand traps. Play around with it, let me know what you like. For the remainder of the extra deck that we didn't go over, Link Decoder, why was this card printed? Did Cyburst need another Link 1? And did Cyburst need another extender? I mean, the card is great, perfect Link coming and extending. You'll see how he comes up. We're on the one Wicked. Wicked is a great Link too, but more importantly, you can search out Baruru, as Baruru is a tuner, so we use Wicked as part of our main line. We're on one Splash Mage, part of all our lands, great extension, crazy strong card. If you're on a Cyberse deck, you're running Splash Mage. And then also, if you're on a Cyberse deck, you're on the one Transcode Talker. Just great for extension, great for OTK, integral to all of our main combo lines. We're also on the one yugioh and Crystal Heart. Crystal Heart can revive Earthlink monsters. So, I mean, he's going to revive the only one that's in here. Allows us to bring back Transcode Talker as he is an Earthlink monster, which gives us back 3 Link material and doesn't negate their effect even. We're also on the one Heat Soul. His most important function is allowing us to search Achichi with AI Meet You, but also he's just an all-around strong Link 3 that will be a part of our end boards. Turns out Pot of Greed on a body is decent. And then, of course, the one access code talker. I gotta finish games. I can't be here all day. What else is there to say? Last but of course not least, we're gonna go over the firewalls. As you can see, I've opted to call this deck Firewall Turbo because our main goal with this deck is to, instead of using all of our Link material applied by the ignisters to put up a big fat arrival, we're going to use it to summon the fellas. We've got normal Firewall Dragon providing just a double compulsory on monsters, which, that's not bad. And then we also have Dark Fluid, who is able to negate 2 monsters effects, which, that's pretty strong. He also gets Humongous during the battle phase, which is fun. And then the last boy himself, he's back, he's bigger than ever. Firewall Dragon Singularity, Link 6 version of Firewall. And you might read this card and maybe you're reading it for the first time and be like, really? This is who you're choosing to run over the arrival? Another compulsory evacuation device? And to that I say, yes. Like, this card might read like the most mid-boss monster ever printed, but the way he works out with the combo line, the relative ease to summon him, his other ability to revive, his big stats only get higher, and the fact that we'll turn him into a Towers with Kachiri, he actually becomes just like impossible for some decks to deal with. If you play the deck, you'll see why he comes preferred over the arrival. That basically covers the card by card and deck profile. Next, we'll review the 3 main combo lines for this deck. I have some duels to showcase the deck in action, and then I'll give you some final thoughts. But with that, let's see what the deck can do. So surprisingly, this deck does not seem that popular on Master Duel, despite how crazy and consistent it can be. I think part of that is the deck can take a long time to play. These combo lines are not short. I think another part is the combo lines appear daunting, and I would have put emphasis on appear. Despite how many steps are involved, I don't think this deck is particularly hard to play, and it is surprisingly streamlined. And that is with a small caveat. I should make it clear that the standard lines are not challenging. I will say the circular line is a little more complicated, but Achichi and Pikari are almost as straightforward as it can get. Complexity can arise when your combo gets interrupted somewhere, or you're starting with a weird opening hand. So although memorizing these lines might not help you there, I do believe practicing these lines will help you there, as you'll build an understanding of what every card in the deck can do, and once you master that, you'll be ready to go off script at a moment's notice. I had to go off script in some of the duels I'll showcase. The lines may not have been perfect, but all that means is I could probably also use some practice too. However, it won't take long for you to figure out these lines. To summarize real quick, you want to start with Infant, get AI land, use AI land to special some of the other attribute ignisters from your hand, Link Climb to clear the main monster zone, then use AI land again and again, until eventually you get the Dark Templar, and then go nuts with how much Link material you have. There are a couple warnings I want to bring up. Ordering of when you do certain effects can really matter. I'll try and point them out as we go through the lines. Also, monster zone placement really matters due to link arrows and certain effects from multiple parts of the combos. Screwing up placement can actually ruin the combo at some points. I'll also try to point that out when it comes up. But if you copy Monster Zone placement from this video, you'll be good to go. The complexity of this deck can arise when you open some of your searchable one-ofs, and sometimes they will change up the combo line slightly and will sometimes just be a garnet, or other times will allow you to find an extender or otherwise play around some interruption from your opponent. That'll just take practice on your part, as well as practice playing through interruption from your opponent. These lines are here to give you an idea of what you should be going for and how to get familiar with how all of the cards in the deck work together. Eventually you'll get comfortable enough with all the cards and we'll learn how to play around and through interruption, and when it's possible to do so. So we'll start off with the Achichi line. Alright, so you want to start off by normal summoning Achichi. It's going to trigger its effect, activate its effect. From here you want to search out Pikari. Then you're going to link off Achichi to go into Dark Infant. Dark Infant's on summon effect will trigger, so you'll activate that. That's going to search out AI land. Activate AI Land, and because we have no monsters in our main monster zones, we can activate that effect, special summon and add ignister monster, special summon Pikari. That is going to trigger his effect. From here, you want to add AI Meet You. Activate AI Meet You, and you're going to want to reveal Dark Templar, because that will allow us to add Doyon. And now you will link these two off for Wicked. And now, once again, our main monster zones are clear, so we can activate AI Land again. So we'll go ahead and activate it. Now you want to summon Doyon, and you want to make sure it goes to one of the arrows that Wicked is pointing to. Otherwise, Wicked's effect will not trigger. So from here, you want to banish that Dark Infant from grave, because we want to leave the other ones in the grave. You want to activate Doyon, and you want to make sure Doyon's adding the one back to hand that you already normal summoned this turn. Because you normal summoned it, you have not special summoned it with AI Land yet. So we'll be able to use that to our advantage here in a second. And then with Wicked, we're going to add Baruru to hand, and then we will link both these off for transcode. Before we activate transcode, we have no monsters in our main monster zone, so we want to make sure we activate AI Land. Doyon will trigger engrave. We're going to add that AI Michu back to hand. We can possibly use that as follow-up next turn. And from here, we want to use AI Land, special summon Baruru, activate Baruru, and you're going to want to send Gachiri to grave. Now you want to activate transcode, bring back Wicked. Now you'll link all three off for Dark Templar. And you want to make sure this goes in the right EMZ, and you'll see why in just a second. So we'll go and activate AI Land, and now we can special summon Achichi because we have not special summoned with that effect yet. And we want to link him off to go into Dark Infant and make sure it's in this leftmost zone. That's going to trigger Dark Templar, activate the effect, chain Dark Infant, move him over to the left. You could change his attribute, but you don't need to with this deck because we're not making the arrival, so it doesn't really matter. And therefore, when you're going to bring back Ruru, Doyon, and Pikari. From here, you want to synchro summon, it doesn't matter which two, into Twin Pegasus. They'll activate Baruru's effect because synchro summoned. You can just bring back that monster you just used. And then you'll use 2 level 4 monsters to exceed summon. You want to get Alan Bershin, that'll trigger Alan Bershin's on summon effect. And you'll add any Mathmech monster. And even though we had the circular, we normally would add one of our extenders, but just assume we didn't have circular in hand, you'll add circular. And from here, you'll link off these 3 to go into Dark Fluid, and then make sure you're summoning them to the left zone of Dark Infant, because we need no monsters in the EMZ for the next play. So on summon, that'll trigger Dark Fluid's effect, gets 2 tokens for 2 negates, that's great. And then we'll trigger circular, you will send Sigma to grave. Activate Sigma's Engrave effect because we have no monster in the EMZ, we can special summon him. Then that'll trigger Circular's effect, so we want to add Equation to hand. Now we want to link off Dark Infant, and one of these two doesn't really matter to go into Crystal Heart. We want to make sure we put Crystal Heart and the left's EMZ, activate the effect, bring back Transcode. And then we will link those 2 off for normal Firewall Dragon. And we want to put them in the zone to the right of Dark Fluid because we want to leave the top zone open. You'll see why in a second. We're going to link off Circular to go into Link Decoder. And now that Firewall is co-linked twice, we'll activate his effect. We can return 2 monsters in our grave back. So we want to return Crystal Heart for follow-up on our next turn if we need it because he can revive the Transcode Engrave, and then add Gachiri back to hand. So now we can activate Gachiri and target Link Decoder, special summon him. And then you will use Gachiri, Firewall, and Link Decoder to go into Big Firewall Dragon, put him in the left DMZ, and that'll trigger Link Decoder, that'll trigger Gachiri. You could target Dark Fluid here if you prefer that better. I think it's better to make Singularity the Tower's monster, but really it's going to be up to you. Link Decoder comes back, activate Equation. We want to bring back Alan Bershin, and we're going to put him in the zone directly underneath Singularity. So we'll activate Alan Bershin's effect, tribute himself, and bring back Circular. Make sure Circular does not go into the zone underneath Singularity. They'll activate Singularity's effect, and we're going to bring back Firewall back, and we're going to put him to the right of Dark Fluid and blow Singularity because that'll co-link him twice, allowing him to bounce 2 cards on our opponent's turn. We'll link these 2 off for Splash Mage. Activate Splash Mage's effect, bring someone back, just make sure it's not a water. I usually bring Gachiri just because it's like easy to remember, and then you will link those 2 off to go into Heat Soul. Summon Heat Soul, activate the effect, draw a card, and then that is our end board. don't trigger Firewall here. There's generally not a reason to. There's nothing for you to even extend with. So this is our end board. We can bounce 2 monsters from field or grave back to hand with normal Firewall Dragon, and then we can return up to 2 cards with Singularity, and also Singularity is a Towers monster, which is great. And then we have 2 effect negations with Dark Fluid, and then of course we can also get to draw a card with Heat Soul, and that might find a hand trap for us. And then we even have Wind Pegasus engraved to spin a card back to our opponent's deck if they happen to remove one of our cards. So surprisingly pretty strong end board. It's actually going to be pretty difficult for an opponent to break through this. So this is combo if you open with Pikari instead. It's basically the exact same combo. I'll show you the 2 main differences. So of course, you'll normally summon Pikari, activate the effect, you're going to search AI Meet You, but instead of searching Doyon at this point, you're going to reveal Heat Soul, and then that's when you want to search Achichi. So from here, you're just going to link off into Dark Infant, and it's the same thing again. You're going to get AI land with Dark Infant. Activate AI land, activate the effect, special summon Achichi. I'll trigger his on summon effect, and this time you want to add Doyon instead. So that's really the first major difference, and then you'll link these 2 off, go into Wicked. Activate AI land, summon Doyon, make sure that's in the Wicked zone. Activate Wicked, banish Dark Infant, activate Doyon, and this time you want to make sure you're picking Pikari and not Achichi, because Pikari is the one that's been normal summoned and has not been special summoned yet by AI land. So make sure you double check yourself on your add back with Doyon, because that could ruin your combo if you add the incorrect one back. And of course with Wicked, we're going to add Bururu to our hand. We'll link off both these 2 to go into transcode. Doyon will trigger, add that spell back to our hand. Activate AI land, special summon Bururu. Make sure it's not the zone underneath transcode, but Bururu will trigger. We're going to send Gachiri to grave. Now we can activate transcode, bring back Wicked. Now we can link for 3. Go into Dark Templar. Activate AI land. Special summon Pikari. Link him off for Dark Infant. And then the combo becomes the exact same again, so I'm just going to go ahead and speed it up. I'll make some comments as we go. Let's once again move. Bring the boys back. Synchro in Pegasus. Revive. Overlay Alimbertion. Alimbertion. Search Circular. Link off Dark Fluid and the left zone. Activate Circular. Normally you would send Sigma to grave, but Sigma's in hand. Doesn't matter, Sigma can still work from hand. So special summon Sigma, they'll trigger Circular, add Equation. Crystal Heart. Crystal Heart, bring back Transcode Talker just for the extra, link rating, the material. Link those off for normal Firewall. The right of Dark Fluid. Link Decoder. Activate. We want to send Crystal Heart for follow-up next turn because you can revive the transcode. Activate Gachiri, target Link Decoder. Link those 3 off for Singularity. Left EMZ. Link Decoder activates, Gachiri activates, so usually target Singularity. Activate Equation, bring back Alimbertion, underneath Singularity, tribute himself, bring back Circular. I'll trigger to bring back Firewall. And then once again, just Splash Mage, revive into Heat Soul, get the draw, and we have our same end board again. So Circular is still mostly full combo, we just won't end on Heat Soul. So when activate Circular, special summon himself by summoning Sigma, bring back Sigma. And this combo does get a little more complicated, so make sure you're paying attention to this, because there are a bunch of places you could easily mess up. So after you bring back Sigma, we're of course going to add Equation, and then we're going to overlay into Alimbertion. Nothing new here from Mathmech. Activate it, and then you're going to add Subtraction or Addition to hand. Your choice, whichever one you like better, or think is better. Activate the effect. Special summon. Link off for Wicked. Now we'll activate Equation. Bring back Alan Bershin. Make sure it's into one of Wicked's arrows because we want to trigger Wicked. And then I usually banish Circular. And then we're going to add Bururu. We have not normal summoned yet, so now we can normal summon Bururu. Activate the effect. From here you want to send Pikari. And then you want to link off Alan Bershin and Wicked to go into Splash Mage, which you will see why in a second. Activate Splash Mage. Bring back Pikari. And it will prompt you to activate Pikari's effect, meaning to make sure you select Cancel because Splash Mage does negate the Summon Monster's effect. So select Cancel because you can only use Pikari's effect once per turn. So if you use it there and its effect is negated, it's going to get canceled. So then you want to synchro them both off for Wing Pegasus, and that's going to trigger Baruru's effect, bring back Pikari, and Baruru's effect does not negate the effect. So now you want to activate Pikari, and from here you want to add AI Michu. So you want to link off Pikari. Go into Dark Infant, make sure you didn't summon Winged Pegasus into Splash Mage's Zone. Activate that, add AI land. We won't be taking as much advantage of AI land, but we will need it to finish up our combo. Link all three of the, or sorry, link these two off to go into Transcode. Activate AI land. Feel Heat Soul. Add Achichi. Activate Transcode. Bring back anyone, doesn't really matter. We're about to link all three of them off for Dark Templar. Make sure Dark Templar is in the right EMZ. Now activate AI land. Activate the effect. Special summon Achichi. That'll trigger his effect. And from here, this time you want to search out Hayari. And you'll see why momentarily. And now we're going to do Dark Templar play. So we'll link him off for the second Dark Infant and the left zone. That'll trigger Dark Templar, trigger Dark Infant, move him over. Special summon the boys once again. And we already have Alan Bershin and Winged Pegasus and Grave, so we don't need to worry about that. So we'll link off Achichi to go into Link Decoder. And we'll use Link Decoder and Dark Templar to go into Firewall. And we need to be in the left zone of Dark Infant. Trigger Link Decoder's effect, bring himself back. Activate Firewall. I'm going to return Achichi to hand. Just because there's not really anything better for that Firewall to do. So then you'll link these three off to go into Singularity. Once again in the left zone. And now you'll special summon Hayari. Activate Hayari's effect. And you're going to tribute Dark Infant because we want to add Gachiri to hand. Because a monster left the zone that Singularity points to, you can activate the effect. You can bring back Firewall, bring him back to the right so we can get him co-linked twice. I'll do Crystal Heart and the right EMZ so the down arrow is available to us. Bring back Transcode. Special summon Gachiri. You're going to target Crystal Heart. And then you'll link those three off for Dark Fluid. And you want to make sure everyone's co-linked. So we'll do it to the right of Firewall. Dark Fluid trigger, Gachiri will trigger, and of course I usually pick Singularity. And we ended up ending on mostly the same board. But those are just kind of the standard lines for the deck. There are definitely other plays you can make, and sometimes there are other searches you need to make or want to make, but that's just going to take you getting used to the deck. I'm just trying to show you just like the bread and butter, bare bones, how the standard combo lines go for this deck. You'll kind of see me making some different plays as we get into the duels, and I'll try to go over them as we get into it. But sit back and enjoy the duels. Alright, first duel up, and just so you don't have to watch me do full combo like 20 or 30 different times this video, and to save some time, we just go ahead and got to this point and just kind of show what like a lot of your duels will end up looking like. we'll speed it up here because nothing of consequence is going to happen. I just kind of want to show you what an average experience on how the game is going to end for you. So, you know, I'm comboing off, getting my Firewall dragons. We got the Dark Fluid, we got normal, we're bouncing stuff back. We got Cheery, we're going to make our towers monster. Our opponent's sitting through it, he had no interruption. And I guess for whatever reason at that, he decided he had enough and scoops it up. So yeah, a lot of your games are just going to end to opponents don't want to sit through that crap. Good game though to my opponent. Alright, starting off, we won the coin toss. We've got started his hand. We've got Ash Blossoms, which is always great. So let's go from there. Activate Pikari, add AI Michu, go to Dark Infant, activate Infant, search out our field spell. Pretty standard line. Of course, going to search Achichi. Field spell allows special summon Achichi. Achichi gets a search. I mean, these cards are crazy. Get that Wicked, and that allows us to trigger Wicked, and have Doyon bring an extender back. Standard line from here. Transcode, add back Meet You. Bururu, put Kachiri to grave. Revive Wicked, then call for yugioh. Dark Templar. Dark Infant, move him over, revive, and then my opponent's going to respond with Nibiru. So that is actually pretty brutal, but we've got the Sign Up Mine in hand, so we can actually extend a decent amount from here. We'll go ahead and special summon Circular, bring back that Sigma, that'll activate Circular, add Equation to hand, like of course both these offer out version. Like those two off Crystal Heart. Bring back Transcode, activate Equation, bring back Circular. We get Firewall Dragon to bounce Kachiri back to hand. And then we can link all those off for Singularity. And the bounce on the Nib here was a little controversial, but I wanted to get the body on his side of the board off the board. So I think it was acceptable, especially when I know he has Nib, and I feel like I can play around it at this point. So it looks like we are up against Mathmech. He is going to add that super factorial hand. Here comes the Alan Burshan. That is, of course, going to get an Ash Blossom response from us. He's going to have extenders from there. I kind of really jumped the gun on my interruption there, because from here he's just going to be able to go into Splash Mage. Get that Link Decoder. Transcode Talker. Yeah, I definitely should have waited until he had like access code talker or something really big on the board for me to bounce back. From here, he's going to go into Terahertz. Terahertz is able to clear chunky Firewall with battle. Our opponent's going to set one, pass back to us. We still got a big Nib token. Let's see what can happen from here. Activate Sigma Engrave. He's going to try to Terahertz. We're going to Ash that. And then he's going to Super Factorial. We'll go ahead and Max C here. And we find a Thrust off the top, which is pretty nice. And of course, Max C drawn the Max C, that's classic. AI Michi goes to the grave. That wasn't too useful to us anyway. He gets a Sigma, he gets our field spell off the board. We can still add that field spell back, activate it, and this was the biggest bait of the century because I had no way to use that field spell, so that's just going to free up our ability to activate the Thrust. And then Thrust will search out talents. Talent steals monster, and then because of the Cyber's deck, we can even send something to the grave to bump them up to 8,000, swinging for the big lethal. So sometimes the buffs pay off. A good game to my opponent, though. And I won't show the whole duel, but just because I think it's funny. If I had a nickel for every time I stole an opponent's Terahertz and then swung in for lethal, I'd have 2 nickels, which, I mean, is a lot, but I think it is funny that it happened twice. Alright, next duel up, and we're just going to save some time because this opponent also doesn't have any eruption, so we're going to go super speed on this one. So Wicked hits board, then goes Doyon. They're all going to trigger when your Researchers, Transcode, and Bururu are going to do their thing. We're going into Dark Templar. Our Dark Templar is going to summon a million things. We're going to Synchro up, Revive back, Overlay, XYZ, Alan Burshan, Search Circular, Dark Fluid, Circular, you know, Sigma Mail, get that grind on, whatever, Firewall. Start bouncing, get Gachiri, make our towers, finish getting our board set up, bring Firewall back, Splash Mage, Heat Soul, free draw, Ash Blossom off the top, doesn't get better than that, Maxine Ash in hand, And my opponent's on 6 cards, which is a little scary, especially when they decide to stay in the duel. He goes straight in the battle phase. He's going to go with that evenly match, which does show a weakness to this deck. This deck actually does sort of have a problem against total board wipes like that. We try to use Firewall to try to recover some of our resources, but we at least get to keep Singularity. He's going to try to Bishal here. We'll Ash there. That's unfortunately going to give him the chance to triple attack. He doesn't find anything. So when he goes Swords of Concealing Light, doesn't find anything. He tries to Herald of Orange Light, but unfortunately here, my monster's still unaffected. He's going to get passed back to me. Should be pretty easy clean up for me here. And he's not even going to sit through it. He scoops it up there. So even though we did get evenly, we lost most of our board thanks to our monster being unaffected. Pretty much had no issue playing through it. But good game to my opponent for trying to play through that. So how's the deck do when we actually lose a coin flip? Let's wait and find out. Opponent's going to start with that Lord of the Heavy Poison, and then he's going to reveal that he is on Lab. What a fun deck. He's going to activate Labyrinth, my Ariana. We've got the Imperm for that, good for us. He's got 2 cards in hand, he's going to set them, pass back to us. And we've got Start in hand, so go ahead and start with the Achichi. That's going to eat a Compulse, but the effect still resolves. We'll add Hayari. He's going to activate all 3 of these effects. We might as well just Call by the Grave here. We're probably not going to get a better Call by the Grave. He's going to get to set a trap. You know, it's Lab. He's probably not going to be able to kill us here, so I feel okay just passing back here. He finds 1 card to set in the back row, passes it back to me, and we can just Achichi again. Let's see what we find off the top, though. Cyanide Mining's pretty good. Start off with Achichi again, though. Get that search. He's going to get that sent to the grave, and send his big lady to the grave. And he's also going to trigger Ice Dragon's Prison before I have a monster on the board, which seemed a little weird. He is going to get to set that card he drew. We'll activate Cyanide Mining. We'll go Circular here because we no longer have our normal summon, but we do have Fighting Spirit in hand. So we'll bring back Pikari, activate Pikari, grab our AI land because we have pretty much everything else already in hand. Go into Infinite, activate AI Michu, get Doyon to hand, activate AI land, get special summon that Hayari, go into Cyber's Wicked, special summon Doyon. And we're pretty much just going to start. For whatever reason, my opponent's got nothing else to chain here, so we're just going to keep extending indefinitely. We'll get that transcode. The line's going to look pretty much standard, but we're also going to be looking to close out the game here. We'll get that Fighting Spirit back in case we need it here. Baru, Senkachiri, Dark Templar time, Dark Infant, move him over, bring him back. And we get to take advantage of Winged Pegasus' other effect. So get that back row out of here. Link all 3 off for Dark Fluid. Link these 2 off for Crystal Heart. Crystal Heart, bring back Transcode. Just a million link material, always feels good. We got Access Code Talker here. Access Code Talker, start cleaning out this board. And thanks to Dark Fluid, we've got a whole lot of damage on board. Go Dark Fluid, swing per game, a good game to my opponent. Oh, this hand looks absolutely killer. I mean, pretty much anyone does the where you open Achichi. So we'll normal summon Achichi. That's going to get a Baylor. A little bit unfortunate, but we have the Sign Up Mine in hand, so I'm not too worried about it. So we'll go Dark Infant here, activate Infant, and then that's going to eat an Imperm. That, unfortunately, is going to end our turn. We'll activate Sign Up Mining. We'll add Circular to hand. Activate Circular, send Sigma. Link these both off for Splash Mage. Link these both off for Heat Soul. Activate Heat Soul, draw. Triple attack is Thrust. That'll allow us to set that Imperm, and it's Heat Soul pass. But my opponent is only going to be on 4 cards, and then we've got the Ash Blossom in hand with the Imperm set, so I'm not too worried about it. He's going to start with that Kash Unicorn. That's, of course, going to give us our Imperm. He's going to Theosis here. We've got the Ash Blossom for that. And he's got Rise Heart in hand. He's going to go into Battle Phase, clear our Heat Soul. Swing and direct, get a little damage in. From here, he's going to go into Shangri-Ira. Set 1 back row, pass back to us. Let's see what we can do from this position. We're up way more cards than our opponent. He does get to put Fenrir on the board, but we'll go ahead and activate Fighting Spirit to bring back Achichi. That'll, of course, activate his effect on summon. Remember, we can get Hayari just as an extender. We have Sigma and Grave, so we'll bring Sigma back. Go into Dark Infant. At this point, finally add AI land to hand. Like these 2 off for Wicked. Let's go trigger Wicked and Doyon. Recover resources, get a good search in. Looking pretty good for us. From here, that's going to activate the Fenrir but we should have enough extenders in hand that that's no longer a concern. Link these two off to go into Link Decoder. Then we'll go to Transcode, bring back Heat Soul. Heat Soul, get us a draw, why not? Firewall Dragon, activate Firewall Dragon, get that Shangri-La out of there, bring back Bururu, Sengachiri, and opponent scoops up from there. So you can kind of see, like, if this deck faces interruption, it can really screw over our lines, but sometimes we don't feel too bad playing out a little bit of a grind game, as we do have access to a lot of ways to generate resources over turns. So good game to my opponent. Alright, once again, Lost Coin Flip, we'll fire that Maxine draw phase. And we're up against Vanquish Soul, so not the best deck to be dropping Max C against. He's just going to go ahead and get his search on and pass back to us. He's got 5 cards in hand. We'll start with that Cyanide Mining. We need to find a starter. He's going to get that Caesar on board. We'll go ahead and activate Achichi, activate the effects, search out Pikari, what else? Link it off for Dark Infant. Dark Infant will trigger. From here, he is going to try to pop my guy. It looks like he has all 3. But it was kind of a weird moment to try to interrupt me because AI land is open for activating. Now I can search out Fighting Spirit because I have 2 1-ups in my hand, so I can extend pretty much indefinitely from here. I don't need to do any more searching from deck. So we'll activate Cyburst Wicked. Didn't actually need to do Cyburst Wicked. And Doyon is also going to bring back Achichi. From here we'll go to Transcode Talker. Doyon a trigger. Bring Bururu, send that Gachiri. Dark Infant. Do our Dark Infant plays. Synchro Summon. Wind Pegasus, he's here. Overlay for Alimbertian. Activate Alimbertian. Search out our Circular. And opponent's had enough there, so he just threw out his interruption. Pretty much the worst moment. He definitely fired it too quickly, and from there we basically would have been able to just completely full combo and very likely OTK'd him. But good game to our opponent. Another Lost Coin Flip, but our hand looks pretty insane. And it looks like we are on Let's Go branded, and we started with that Ash Blossom in our hand. I'm just good. What can I say? Of course, we're going to Ash that branded fusion. From here, he's going to go to Kit. Kit to add that fusion back. He's going to set 1 back row. Pass it back to us. I don't know if he was like trying to trick me, like trying to make me think, of course, he would keep Branded Fusion in his hand. So we'll start off with Achichi here. Achichi will search Hayari because we don't need to search Pikari because he's already in hand. We'll activate Dark Infant. We'll get AI land, activate AI land, activate the effects, push something like Pikari. Pikari is going to search out AI Meet You because we do still need to find Doyon. So we'll reveal Dark Templar, add that Doyon to hand. Link these 2 off for Wicked. Zone is free. Doyon, Wicked, Doyon, you know. Same old, same old. Get that Bururu, get that Transcode on the board, facing no interruption from my opponent. Bring back Bururu, activate his effects, and got Chiri to Grave. Bring back Wicked. All 3 off for Dark Templar. And then that's going to get a Super Poly response. So we still have extenders from here. We can still go Dark Templar, and we can't do his effect the best possible, but we can go into Link Decoder to go into Access Code Talker, activate the effect. And then that, of course, is going to get the Caritas, but from there we can then activate Thrust to search out the talents. Talent steals monster, pop his guy, and then we can link all 3 of these off for Singularity, because Singularity does not need to use Cyber's monsters, which is actually great for us. Activate Crystal Heart, bring back that Transcode. Link these off for Firewall. That's going to trigger that effect, bring back that Transcode. Bounce these back, why not? But we've got lethal damage on board, swing them all in. Oh, but we were under Circular, so it was not actually lethal. So pass it back to him, he's on 1 card. It's gonna have to save him. Doesn't find anything he needs. GG. Alright, starting off this one, look, our hand's looking pretty strong. Start off with the Achichi, who else? Get Pikari. Link it off with that Infant. Infant will get searching. No responses from my opponent yet. Activate the field spell, special summon Pikari. Pikari gets to search again. Go Wicked. At this point we went Fighting Spirit because we already had Doyon in hand. So activate Doyon, of course, off the special summon. Now of course trigger Wicked. We'll get Bururu and bring Achichi back. Go Transcode. Special summon Bururu sends Gachi. And we're free to go into Dark Templar from here. And then that eats the nib response from my opponent. I am going to chain the Max C just for the draw 2. And we find another extender off the top, which is nice for us. From here we'll go Circular, Circular Sigma, get Equation. And we are going to try to continue to play from this point. We'll activate Alimbertion. Just add another Circular to hand for follow-up. And add that Subtraction, link those both off for Crystal Heart. Activate Crystal Heart, bring back Transcode. Activate that Fighting Spirit that we searched, bring back Gachiri. We can link all those off for Big Firewall Dragon, and of course give him the Gachiri protection. Bring back Alimbertion, tribute Alimbertion. Bring back Circular. Now I'll get Bururu. From here I'm going to go into Wind Pegasus, because I want to try to get all of the super types engraved to give more bounces and more things to Dark Fluid. We'll link these two off for Heat Soul. Heat Soul, draw a card, and then we'll link these two off for Firewall Dragon. Firewall Dragon also doesn't only require Cyber Response. We're going to return that Nibiru to hand, because once again, I don't think I'm going to give him another opportunity to use that Nibiru, and I don't want to leave a 3000 body on his side of the board. I will try to start off the turn with that Maxi. He's got the Called by the Grave. Good for him, I guess. He'll start off with Pot of P, see what he can find off the top. And it looks like we are up against Traptrix, and it's Traptrix with a lot of cards in hand. But Traptrix isn't the best against playing through an established board. He's going to get that talent to hand off the top. He's going to start with Murmillo. That's, of course, going to need our Ash Blossom. I'm not going to let that happen. And then I don't want him to go into Sarah, so I'm just going to pop his normal summon back to hand. He's going to try to triple tactics. I guess he realized he can't add Singularity back to hand. He's going to steal my Firewall Dragon, but he put it in one of the zones that Singularity points to. So when Firewall Dragon gets clear, we get to add Transcode Talker back to the board. He sets nothing, passes it back to me. We would have had a very easy cleanup with whatever Transcode could revive and like Access Code Talker. So good game to my opponent. Thanks for trying to play that out. I said in my prior video on ignister that this is one of those decks that will always be kind of good. Even though we've changed up the extra deck substantially, I think that statement still definitely holds up. This deck has a lot going for it. For strength, despite the lack of representation this deck gets on ladder and on tier lists, this deck is definitely a contender. Incredibly consistent, so many starters that fully combo, incredibly explosive, so many ways to put up powerful boards or close out games, an incredibly lean main deck, just plenty of room for a fairly customizable non-engine portion. The deck wants to summon all of the stupid high-level Cyberse Link monsters, and the deck has no issue summoning the stupid high-level Cyberse Link monsters. However, that brings us just our weaknesses. The biggest weakness this deck has is the 15 card extra deck. There are so many cards we wish we could make space for our list, but the fact that our combo line uses 14 of the 15 cards in our extra deck basically says everything you need to know about that. You bet your ass I'd like to run Update Jammer for easy lethals, or some redundancy monsters like an extra Splash Mage if we get interrupted, but we simply just do not have the space. Honestly, our only flex spot is Access Code Talker, and that should tell you everything you need to know about how tight the extra deck space is. Also, the fact that we use 14 of our 15 cards in our extra deck in our main combo line is just a serious concern if our opponent finds a way to crack the board with something like Lava Golem or Sphere Mode. Now, yes, we usually try to mitigate that by sending Crystal Heart back to the extra deck to revive Transcode if our board gets broken, but even then, you're just trying to climb into Access Code Talker, and your Access Code Talker or bust. And we really can't afford to allow our board to get broken with this deck. And then it's a combo deck. Our deck can have trouble versus interruption from our opponent. Our combo line special summons multiple times over the turn, so GG to Max C. Our combo line adds multiple necessary cards to hand to combo, so GG to Duel. Last, our combo line has many steps, which means there are many places it could go wrong, depending on how and when our opponent chooses to interrupt us. Practice and knowing ways to continue combo will help to mitigate that, but sometimes you're going to lose to an imperm on your Dark Infant. There's nothing you can really do about that. And I'm not trying to really just like completely talk you down from this deck. Most of these problems are problems just like every combo deck has, but I feel like I would not be giving you an accurate picture if I didn't bring them up. The strengths of this deck are still here, and those weaknesses don't necessarily completely take away from all of the great things this deck has going for it. For price tag, the deck honestly is more affordable than most. Thanks to the solid structure deck hooking up with Signet Mining, the main deck is fairly cheap other than just like Circular and the main deck non-engine staples. The extra deck also isn't too pricey. I mean, it's all SRs and URs, but that's pretty standard for a deck anymore. And a couple of the cards have utility in other decks, so you do get some decent mileage out of them. Especially if you want to like also build something like, I don't know, Mathmech or something. In terms of fun, I love this deck. There's something nice about a deck being as consistent as this one. There's also something nice about, you know, just a somewhat more streamlined combo, where I can kind of turn my brain off, if you know what I mean. But you don't always have to stick to the script. There are plenty of cool lines available to you that aren't just the standard setup lines. which can be fun to think through and play through when you have to like get through some interruption from the opponent. I will say this deck is definitely not for everyone. This deck is not the fastest deck to play with how many steps there are just for like our standard opening line, or just lethal lines of play can take just an incredible amount of steps, as unfortunately we can't like fit update jammer to make the lethal lines much more simple. So maybe don't use this deck to ladder climb, but maybe use it for just like a more chill, I just want to play a bunch of cards kind of experience. Be prepared for some salty opponents, as sitting there watching you spin your wheels can be frustrating. As you know, we've all been there. We've all let out that sigh at someone's super long opening turn or long ass lethal combo. But if you watch the combo lines of the duels and you thought for even a second that this deck looked cool to you, I can probably guarantee that you will enjoy it. That's pretty much all I have to say regarding this deck. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to post them below. If you enjoyed the video or found any portion of it helpful, I greatly appreciate any likes or feedback. If you'd like to see more deck profile and combo guides, be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe to the channel. I've got something big planned for the holidays. I mean, it's going to be another deck profile, but it's going to be a big one, so be on the lookout for that. But with that, I will see you next time, friends.